What is up, everybody? Welcome to the RotoWire Soccer Show. I'm your host, Ryan, joined again by Mo. A little early for the podcast today. Wanted to let Mo catch his flight tomorrow. He was nice enough to come on with us again. We thought we might have an 18-gamer today for the last match day of the opening phase of the Champions League, but DraftKings left us with 10. They left a few games off. We'll get into some motivation. There's really not that much here. I thought it was going to be a little bit more interesting of a slate to talk about, being that we don't see slates this big. Thought it was going to be something different, but it almost feels like, I don't know, smaller than other slates because we have Bayern Munich at home against Slovan on this slate. They're about 96% favorites. You can see on the cheat sheet, we don't even have implied goal totals for that game because it breaks the cheat sheet or something. I think their implied total is actually over 4. I don't know. They're like minus 300 to score over 4 goals or something. So yeah, that's going to dominate this slate. It's a little bit unfortunate because I think it means there's just some spots you probably can't consider. But yeah, I don't know. Those were my first observations. What's up, Mo? What about you? What do you think about this slate?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I went and looked at what FanDuel did, and they went with 6 pretty reasonable games. And so I kind of wish that DraftKings had done the same. It is exciting to have 4 more in the group. I just wish they'd been a little bit more selective, but it's what we've got and we got to work with it. I think that your read of the day is pretty right. Bayern are huge favorites and they have everything to play for. They're currently 15th. They need, a win and favorable results to go their way to really move up into those 8 guaranteed spots. And, they're going to go all out and they're priced up, but they're still not priced up enough that it's going to be difficult to play multiple pieces. I think there are a few teams that have very little to play for, and I think it'll be interesting to see what those teams do. So Liverpool are 7-0 in the Champions League. I think we'll see heavy rotation there. I think we might see some of this lineup that we have in here. Actually, we might see all of it in the cheat sheet. But Bradley getting a full run at 4,200 is someone I have some interest in. I haven't checked Nunez's price, but I might be tempted to go down there again. And even though he hurt me last week, kind of, see what he can do on a second go. So you have Liverpool with no real motivation. You have Barcelona, who after the incredible heroics of last week are also pretty much locked up. And so we might see some rotation for them as well. We currently have a pretty strong first 11 in here. We might see that, but we also might not, because I think they are, well and comfortably secure in the next phase. And finally, we have Arsenal, who, while not technically safe and kind of done, they also are kind of, with their goal difference, pretty much secured in the next phase. And as you know very well, you guys are struggling with all sorts of injuries. And so it might be a welcome reprieve to get, some of the guys who have been playing a lot, some downtime. So I think Bayern's going to be the spot to chase. I think City will be interesting as well. Dortmund, I'm going to be curious to get your thoughts on them because every slate we have Shakhtar listed as the bottom team. The bookmakers seem to have no faith in them. But then Kevin or whoever shows up with a goal and makes it an interesting game. So it'll be interesting to see if Dortmund kind of live up to their pre-match hype. And the rest, I think, is going to be tricky. I don't really like a lot of the other matchups. I also think, just as you said, it's really hard to move away from the crazy implied goal totals that, Munich are projected to put up. Anytime you break the clean sheet, it means you're a pretty good favorite to chase. So I don't really know if I have much interest in the rest, but there might be spots here and there to take advantage of.
Okay, yeah, I think that was a great breakdown. Yeah, it's not too often we see teams with a 4 implied total, right? Not even over 3. I mean, it's pretty rare. So if you're going to go away from Bayern, like really, who do we go to? You mentioned Liverpool don't really have anything to play for. They'll be resting guys. Their total is 1.79, like about as low as you'll ever see. So the odds, would suggest that it's not going to be, like a normal Liverpool performance. I would assume. Same with Arsenal, like a 1.89 total, not much to play for on the road in Spain, like not a great spot with the injuries they have. So, it'd be tough to forego Bayern for either of those spots. Then you have Madrid at Brest. Still some stuff to play for. They kind of let us down last week. It got there at the end. Vinny with a brace. I think Vinny's suspended now for this one. So there's probably going to be some rotation there. Mbappe, the most expensive player on the slate. It's going to go overlooked. Maybe interesting for tournaments. Yeah, because I think the second place people will probably look is Manchester City, which makes sense. Everything to play for. Need a win. More motivation on this slate than anybody. 2.6 total. Pretty soft spot at home against Bruges. And like guys like Haaland are going to be lower owned than they would be otherwise. Because it's 10 games and because the Bayern spot is so good. It's definitely like a spot where you could see a hat trick from Haaland at lower ownership. So that's interesting. And then, Dortmund seems like the third best spot on the slate. They disrespect Shakhtar quite a bit. Not that they're a great team by any means, but Dortmund hasn't been a great run for Dortmund either recently. They just fired Nuri Sahin. They're going to have an interim manager. Same guy they had over the weekend. They went up 2-0 over the weekend and at home and blew that lead, and it finished 2-2. But there's some cheap prices in that game. I think they do have the third highest total. I think their whole team's cheap, actually. So you will be looking for some Dortmund pieces, I think, to fill out lineups. It's tough to, know which ones. Some of them are really cheap. Well, we'll talk about it. But yeah, I think, Villa. We didn't mention Villa. They're sitting there with a total above 2. They should handle Celtic, but I don't know. Villa are a team that's tough to trust as favorites. I always say how they play down to their competition. I don't know if that's true, but I think there'll be some rotation here from Villa. They haven't been in great form. I don't expect this to be like a huge floor spot. I don't know, maybe there are some pieces you can go there. And then, Barca with not that much motivation and not the greatest match. I don't think people are going to be really on that spot either. Maybe a spot to look to in tournaments, but really just it's tough to get away from Bayern. But let's get into forward. And is everyone just like is Kane? Mbappe 11.9, Haaland 11.7, and then Kane 11K. I would assume Kane this is one of those spots where he might be like favored to score a brace or something. I didn't check odds. They're like minus 400 to score or something. Do you think he's a cash game play? Do we want other Bayern pieces? Is he too expensive? I don't know. What are your thoughts on forward?
So I think when thinking about Kane and all the Bayern pieces, I think it's good to understand like the range of outcomes, right? Which is, this is obviously a match where they're projected to go in, smash it 4-5-0, and they really should, right? And in those scenarios, Kane, has just been absolutely destroying the goal scoring charts since he moved to Bayern. You would expect him to do most of the work. There is a possibility that, they get a 2-0, 3-0 lead, job done, start subbing guys off. And, if Kane hasn't been in the mix, then you're in the worst case scenario. But if you're wrestling with questions like that, I think the most important thing to look at is, all right, what are my alternatives? And as we said, you've got Mbappe at 11.9, right? Which, yeah, he doesn't have, Vinny to kind of take away some chances like he did last week, but the opposition isn't easy. Brest has been doing a great job all year of keeping goal scoring totals down. They're a very defensive unit. And your other option, Holland, is 11.7, right? And yes, Holland can break a slate. Holland can do great work. He can also, lay an egg probably bigger than Kane can. And Bruges, if you're telling me to compare Bruges to Slovan Bratislava, I mean, Bruges is a level above that, So really, as I look at kind of the other options, I find it very hard to move off of Kane. I think that, if I keep scrolling down, I see Lewandowski. We know that he has no motivation. He may not even start. If we go to Atalanta, we see Lookman. Atalanta are also not the most motivated team. They're currently on 14 points with a 14 goal differential. They are not safe yet, but they don't need much. And in general, I don't think their matchup versus Barcelona is one where you are going to see a lot of fruit. So
yeah,
the short answer is, I think it's really hard to move off of Kane here, and I think he'll likely be in there. You just featured. Yep.
Thanks, Todd. Mo and I are in the interleague streets today. We'll see what happens there after this podcast ends. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's really hard. Like, who are you going to go away? I don't think you can go to an underdog. Like, if you're not going to play Bayern, how can you replace someone from an underdog on this slate? It just seems like very suboptimal. I think on a traditional day, if all these teams were motivated, we'd be considering Rafinha pretty strongly. I know both Mo and I played him last week, and he came good at the end, which was nice to see. This slate for 10K, and Barca really doesn't need this game, and I'm not sure you can pencil him in for 90 like you normally can. I don't know, 10K seems kind of like a lot for Rafinha here, but Barca still have a relatively high total. I don't know, these teams are still going to play. So I wouldn't fault anybody for considering Rafinha. The other point you made about the Bayern guys, I agree with too. There's probably going to be some subs in this game. They might be up 3-4-0 at half. They usually spread around production. Like, there's scenarios where they can all just kind of score 18 points or so. And even if like Kane does that, for tournaments at least, they might not be the guys you want. I mean, there might be some braces and hat tricks out there, and maybe a lot of these Bayern guys don't stay out there to realize their ceilings. I don't know. They have a pretty healthy team right now. You see their guys get subbed at 60 minutes quite often. I think like most, three of their attackers will probably go off at 60 minutes here. So there's reason to consider fading when you combine that with the ownership they'll have. I think there's some reason to consider fading for tournaments, but I think Kane is a pretty logical starting point, in all formats. I'm not sure, like, there's just not that much opportunity cost, I guess. Like, you can go to Holland, like you said, but he's even more expensive. And also, he's not a lock either at that price, has some duds in him at that price, especially with the way City's been playing. So second forward, I think probably we're going to look to Bayern again. They get cheaper after that. Sani is 8,400, Coman 71, Muller 63, Tell and Gnabry 55 and 54. I mean, if Gnabry starts for that price, I don't really see how you can fade that. He only played, I think, 60 some minutes over the weekend, but got subbed. But that's in play for all their guys here. Maybe we see some rotation. I could see Coman starting for 71. I think that would be pretty interesting. Do you have a take here? Are you interested in these guys? Are you trying to fade them because they're going to get subbed? Are they just too cheap? What do you think?
So the decision that I faced when I was kind of trying to put together an initial lineup to see what I might want to do is that if you have, Olise or Elise, is it Elise? It's Elise, right? As a lock. And if you have, who else? Musiala as a lock, right? Then you start having to make difficult decisions. And I'm not saying by any means that these are locks. I mean, they're pricey guys who may not pay off their salary, but if conceptually you're going in with the idea that Bayern are going to smash, these are guys you probably want, then you get faced with the tough decision of, am I going Coman or am I going Kimmich, right? And they're both around 7K. It's going to be really hard for you to play both. And so you start having to look at, okay, is there greater value at midfield? Is there greater value at forward? Do I view Kimmich's ceiling as better in a matchup like this, or do I view Coman's ceiling as better? And you start having to think about subs, and you quickly go down the rabbit hole. So what I'll say is I'm not sure as to what I'm doing second forward. And I know that there are a lot of really tempting guys who could move me off of someone like Coman at second forward. So I was just kind of jotting down some names that were of interest to me while you were kind of giving your thoughts. Tell is a 5.5. Gnabry is a 5.4. I don't think Tell starts, but Gnabry could at 5.4. And if he starts at that price, very tempting. Nunez, the guy who forever burns us, is 5.1. Again, I mean, you just got to put the ball in the net once against, some PSV, not the most difficult matchup, and he pays off his price. You've got pod favorite Kevin on a 2-game streak of scoring. Probably not where I'm going to go, given his extreme disfavored status in this matchup, but he's interesting. And then 2 guys who I actually was wondering if you had any thoughts on them. Fatty for Barcelona and Duranville. I don't know who this guy is, but he's like min-priced every single Dortmund slate, both in the Bundesliga and the Champions League. Do you think, A, there's any chance that Fatty gets play time in a matchup that doesn't matter much for Barcelona? And do you know anything about Duranville that would make him worth playing in this game versus Shakhtar?
Good questions. And yeah, good breakdown again. I think you're right in that you're going to have to see where you'd rather, punt or, which Bayern guy you'd rather play to see, whether you want to play the forward or the midfield. Like you said, Kimmich only 6,900 on this slate. Similar price to Coman, quite a bit cheaper than Musiala and Michael Olise. And Kimmich is a guy who famously hates to get subbed and tells the managers do not sub him. So, yeah, it seems like a pretty good spot for Kimmich, actually, to at least get there on floor. He's got some assist upside here, even some goal upside, probably more than usual. If he starts in the midfield, I would say. He started at right back last game, so I would keep an eye on that. Maybe they bring another right back in here. Maybe they have Limer play right back, or I guess even Sasha Bowie could come in. Kimmich is going to be a tough decision. I think he's, even myself, who doesn't normally play Kimmich in tournaments, I have more interest than usual here for all those reasons. With Dortmund, this Duranville, Mo, I wish I could talk a little bit more about him, or a little bit more intelligently about him. But all I know is he's 18 years old and valued pretty highly. And he seems to have the type of skill set that we like. Like, he's not too dissimilar from, a Gittins or Adeyemi. I don't think he's there yet. Just in terms of like physically and stuff. I saw him play once. I forget, like a month ago, one of the Champions League games that he played in. I don't remember, but for 4,100 against Shakhtar in a game where they're going to be attacking, you have the third highest total. I think it's perfectly fine. I think yeah, the cheapest Dortmund attacker looks pretty good. I don't know if he's going to start, but definitely someone I would be considering. I think I would have more interest in Gittins and Adeyemi. I mean, I just really like both of them. They've both treated me very well in the past. I think both of them have brace upside, even if they play 60 minutes. And I think at those prices, probably wouldn't get played too much, 6,500 and 6,400. I mean, they'd get clicked on, but people might try to go cheaper. Yeah, good shout for Nunez. I didn't initially see that. I had just sort of like crossed off Liverpool, but pretty good spot for only 5,100. Yeah, I mean, Liverpool obviously still a better team than PSV. Nunez himself has all the motivation in the world, and so do guys like Connor Bradley and Harvey Elliott if they're going to be rotating like that. So I think that's a pretty good call. Yeah, I think that's forward. I mean, was there anything else? Trying to look. I'm looking at Villa. Don't really like anything there. Duran's expensive. Maybe we get a first start from Daniel Malen. He's 7,600. Yeah, Ansu Fati, was that the other one? He's 4K too, right? He's the same price as Duranville. I don't know. They seem like similar options, right? I think guys that could very easily just score 5 points and get subbed early, but they're also 4,100 and have decent pedigree and could definitely be involved in a goal. So I'll keep him in the pool, I think.
Bear is tilting the fact that I hit the 2,600 center back who scored on today's slate.
I'm tilting it too because I purposely got up from him. Congrats to Mo. Congrats to Mo. I saw him too. That guy, he had been playing fullback sometimes, but anyways, shouts to Mo.
World of center back, or of interleague rather. This is probably not going to matter for this slate, but I saw Colomwani is now a Juventus striker. He's 3,500 on the slate. He won't start, but it's just wild things happening in the transfer market that we haven't even really kept with. Napoli's, what's his name? I can never say his name right. KK.
Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, there you go. He's now at PSG, and you've got Colomwani going the other way. So interesting things happening, but I don't think they're projected to start, nor do I expect them to play a major role. I think what PSG has here, which is Barcola and Dembele, has been working for them. I don't think it's where I'm going to have any interest, in this slate. I don't think away to Stuttgart is a very lucrative matchup, but just something of note. I got nothing else on forward, though.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, something of note for sure. What is Dembele, 89? Yeah, if Kang wasn't in there, something to consider for tournaments, I guess. I don't think people are going to be on PSG in this spot. To midfield, yeah, the Bayern guys, we pretty much mentioned it. Olise, Kimmich, Musiala. Musiala is the most expensive at 92. Usually plays longer than the others. Played 80 over the weekend. Olise didn't even start. So he probably comes in here, probably takes a few sets like he does. I don't know, Mo, do you have a preference on these guys? Do you have, are you leaning Musiala or Olise? Are you trying to fit both of them? Do you want Kimmich in there? What do you think?
Yeah, I've had a weird relationship with Kimmich this season. It used to be like the number one click for me. And then, all the matchups that I think he'll smash, he doesn't. All the matchups that I think he won't smash, he does. So I'm really conflicted. Obviously, you can see the ceiling narrative, right? Like they dominate the game, but they get a lot of corners because they don't score right away. And, all of a sudden he's just whipping crosses in left and right. Maybe picks up an assist in that process, and all of a sudden he's giving you 20 points, no brainer, great value for 7K. Alternative is they don't get corners, they score their goals, he gets his job done, he just floats in the midfield otherwise and doesn't do much, right? So I think Elise is, I keep saying Elise. Elise is an easy call. And I think Musiala is a little trickier, but you got to think of him more of as an attacking forward almost, the way he plays in that Bayern setup. And so you're kind of assuming or really banking on him getting at least a goal, maybe more. And I'm inclined to kind of take that. So those are my two that I like. Kimmich still to be determined.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel. It might actually be Olise. I always thought it was, but like Jack says Olise constantly that he like puts it into my head, and now you just don't know anymore. But anyways, he's been splitting corners with Kimmich. I checked. Kimmich takes more, but Olise still's been taking like 3 or 4 most games when he starts. So yeah, that's a tough decision. It's funny that as someone who like you normally play Kimmich and I don't, and then on this slate, it's like you're kind of leaning away from him and I might be leaning towards him. Kind of interesting. I don't know. I don't think you can go wrong with these Bayern guys. They all have paths to smash and they all have paths to maybe not get there for their price. But I think you're probably going to want some piece from them. I mean, going through the other options, who would it be if you don't play them? Certainly, like, I don't think you're spending money on anyone besides Bayern. Going down the list, like Kang has sets. You're not going there for 86. I don't know, Mo. Like, I don't find maybe there's some punts, but I don't see anyone that I'm like willing to spend money on over the Bayern guys.
Yeah, I think, go ahead.
No, like I was going to, Dortmund may have a piece, I don't know. I'm not very tempted by Pascal Gross here, but maybe some other people will be. His game logs aren't very inspiring. I don't know if it's better if he would play center mid or right back. I think you'd rather have him in the midfield. I was checking and he seems to get subbed early when he plays right back and just doesn't have quite as high of a floor. I think he's very set piece dependent, but there could be quite a few sets in this game depending on how it goes. I mean, even going back to you mentioning Kevin, I actually think someone like that, you wouldn't necessarily think they're in play, but I think that's a good shout actually. Like Shakhtar could easily score 1 or 2 goals here. Everybody's been scoring against Bayern. And when you're competing with like guys like Darwin Nunez, who can easily just score 4 points, and some of these other Dortmund guys that can score like 5 points. Yeah, don't mind a Shakhtar piece. Sorry for the little tangent, but back to midfield. I don't really, nothing really jumps out at me after the Bayern guys.
Yeah, I think you don't really have the salary, like you already said, Foden, Rafinha, Kevin De Bruyne. I mean, those are big sacrifices that you have to make.
I should have mentioned KDB. Should talk about KDB. I meant to talk about KDB. KDB is definitely in play here, or Foden. I mean, City have a 2.6 total, and more motivation than anybody. They have some more bodies in there now. Some guys coming back healthy, and with Marmoush there, De Bruyne was rested over the weekend. Him and Guardiola got into it in the last Champions League game. There was that clip going around of like Guardiola yelling at him to pass the ball, and De Bruyne takes it, ends up losing it. De Bruyne tells him to fuck off on the way back a couple times. He gets subbed a little bit after. It's pretty interesting stuff. So I don't, their relationship has always been a bit interesting. You wouldn't be surprised to see KDB show up with a stormer here, though, after that. But also, you wouldn't be surprised to see him not play well and get subbed early, just with the way things have been going for City. So, yeah, do you have any? Foden's 10-7. That's going to keep his ownership down. Makes it interesting for tournaments. Like Foden's a guy that can put up 30 on this slate for sure. Do you have any interest in either one of them?
Certainly not Foden. I just can't get there. And Rafinha, we've already said, is kind of out of the equation. I am going to be curious to see if there's a way to get to KDB with the Bayern guys. It's probably a little greedy, but that's what you're supposed to do on a slate like this, get greedy. Because on a 10-game slate, you are going to find some really cheap value guys. We've already kind of flagged some of the guys that could start at forward. One guy we didn't mention at forward, again, just digressing a bit, Savinho is 6.2. We had really hyped him up on the last pod. I don't think either one of us played him. And then he got subbed off at half. So don't mean to characterize his value proposition as anything like KDB, but always interesting. But then at midfielder, you actually have a lot of really interesting plays in the lower value areas. So Muller is unlikely to start, but if he does start, he's going to be really interesting. He's around 5K-ish or something. Leimer is projected to start. He's around 3 point something. And Leimer's an interesting player because what happens in the Bayern smash games and the games where they're heavily favored is, for some reason, instead of Kimmich being the guy who's pushing up and really creating things, making things happen, Leimer does a lot of it. And as we saw in like his Shakhtar game, he put up 18 points, 1 goal, 2 shots, 2 shot assists, foul drawn, 3 tackles. I mean, he was just everywhere, right? And, you get that from 3.6. Not only does it fit your thematic narrative of Bayern smashing, but it also really opens everything else up. So he's someone I have a lot of interest in. Sabitzer is a 3.2, dirt cheap, good matchup. Again, someone who you could easily plug in to make things work. And then the last person is going to be back to Bayern. Pavlovic is at 3.2. He doesn't have the same profile of Leimer. As far as I know, he's not the guy who is going in there and crossing into the box or taking the shot or anything. But again, when you have a game that is so heavily one-sided, just being the guy who makes the pass before the goal and gets an assist at 3.2, I mean, it unlocks everything else for you.
Yep. I agree with all that. Savinho missed him when we're talking about forward, 6,200. Yeah, I think you can make that argument. And, maybe I wouldn't say cash, but it can't be that bad at that price. I guess you worry about he did get subbed at half last time. Doku's out, helps a little, but
they got
Marmoush there. Yeah. Yep. I thought Marmoush looked pretty good for the most part in that first game.
I didn't get to check him out, but as you already know, on my bias, I'm ecstatic that we have 2 world-class Egyptians, at the top of the EPL headlines these days.
For sure. Yeah, he looks like the real deal. Good shout on Sabitzer. Jack would love that one. I think you're right. I think Leimers is the best of those cheap guys. Good chance at 90 minutes. And like you said, upside, he has a couple goals the last couple times he started. So definitely don't mind that. And was there anyone else? I think that's about it. Yeah, De Bruyne, just the last thing. He's going to be lower owned than he normally is. People have already started to come off De Bruyne a little bit. And then here just being 9,500 and, you have to play him over the Bayern guys. I think it makes it pretty interesting. If you get a De Bruyne goal, he could score 30 in this spot. So yeah, I will look at ways to see if I can fit him in there with some Bayern guys. Again, like Musiala and like Olise, they finish with like 20 points quite often or 18, and like it's not going to be optimal. It'll be fine, it'll be good, but you might not necessarily win if someone else there scores 30 or 35.
Yeah, that's what I was going to kind of lean into. A question for you is, I've kind of passed it off as, oh yeah, why wouldn't you pay Musiala? He's always live for goal and assist and everything. he really is pretty close to a 1-to-1 decision with Kevin De Bruyne, right? 9.5, 9.2. Are we being too quick to suggest that decision is an easy one to make?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I don't think it's easy. I'm not even sure that I necessarily prefer Musiala at the same price. I mean, you definitely need a goal. I would assume he's minus odds to score. I mean, he must be. And then with a floor, like he probably gets you 20 points, maybe even more. I mean, you worry a little bit about his minutes. You worry about De Bruyne and the City guys too a little bit, but no, I don't think it's an easy decision. I don't think it's an easy decision at all. I wouldn't fault anybody for going either way on it. Actually, like, you can read that City situation different ways. They have the most motivation. De Bruyne does too, personally. But then the recent logs don't look as good. He got subbed early last game after not playing great. I could see either scenario. Oh, I'll just play Musiala. He's going to score a brace. It's the best spot of the season. Bayern. That seems fine too. I wish I knew the answer, Mo.
Don't we all? Don't we all?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anything for midfield there. Like you said, there's gonna be value on this slate. There's just 20 teams playing. Not necessarily sure who the best of it is right now, but I think that will influence decisions. Like if you're gonna take the value at midfield or at forward and where you're gonna spend, etc. But yeah, let's move to defender. Might be tough to pay for a defender on this slate if you're going to try to jam in a bunch of Bayern guys or City pieces or whoever else. Are there expensive defenders that we want to play? I don't know. Let's see. Alexander-Arnold seems like he's going to rest. I wouldn't feel the greatest about clicking him even if he did start. His price is kind of down now, but yeah, let's just assume Connor Bradley's going to start. It seems that way. Luca Digne, 6K in like a pretty decent spot. Some people like to play Digne more than I do, but I don't know. It doesn't seem too bad. There could be some rotation there too. I don't know. Madsen did come in over the weekend. They had a center back get hurt, and Digne moved to center back, and Madsen came in and played left back, I believe. So maybe he starts for 4,200. I don't know that he'd have sets. I think it would depend on the rest of the lineup, but not a bad price. Hakimi, 59. You can always consider Hakimi. I don't think people will really play him here. Props to Mo for playing him on the last slate against City. Got pretty unlucky not to get a smash game from Hakimi there. You really did. That was a great play. That game ended up being pretty wild, back and forth. You also got super lucky that Theo Hernandez missed a sitter from like 4 yards out. To even like keep you alive for Hakimi.
No, I had them both.
Oh, you had them both. Okay, my bad.
Brian, I had disallowed Hakimi, missed sitter for Hernandez, 3 or 4 goals disallowed for Furuhashi. Just unreal for that slate.
Oh man, there was no justice on that slate. I didn't realize you had both of them either. Yeah, so Mo, you should have had about 25 more defender points on that slate. Really annoying, actually. Anyways, I think Hakimi's would be okay for tournaments here at, with nobody really playing him. Definitely could get to 20 points with a goal or an assist. Tsimikas probably comes back into the starting lineup. It's not a bad price if you knew he was going to play 90, and he probably has a chance to. I think Robertson played 90 last game,
Yep.
And they don't really need him necessarily here. So maybe Tsimikas would be the popular guy. People like to play him at that price, I think. Robertson, 4,900. That's really cheap. I don't know. Like you could play that too if he started over Tsimikas. It doesn't seem like he will. Yeah, Mo. After that, I don't know. So I didn't. Are you going to play the Liverpool left back, I guess, is where we're going to start? Or would you rather try to save money with trying to find some other fullback somewhere else?
No, I think I'll almost definitely be looking to save money here. Even going with Limer or someone of his ilk, I would have to really either pay down at second forward or just pay down at both defender spots in order to make the lineup work. And so right now, I'm inclined to pay down at defender. I think the upside is higher at forward. So I really like a lot of the names down here, to be honest. I think that, none of them give me sets and upside the way that a TAA would, but they do present favorably. I think just to kind of start it off, we've got Gvardiol, who always is live for goals, especially in a game where City needs them at 4.1. Earlier in the year, we would have said, anything below 5.2 or anything below 5.5 is playable for him. So I think I have a lot of interest in that. I think if you're telling me Bradley is going to get 75 plus minutes, maybe even 90 in this matchup versus PSV, he's aggressive, he's hungry, and the price is 4.2. We've got a lot of interest in that as well. And then there's a couple of guys that I think it'll be interesting to hear from you, Ryan, on your team that are going to be priced very favorably. You've got Calafiori at right back for only 3.2. I mean, that's really nice and cheap. And on the other side, I know we currently have, who do we have currently starting there? Timber. But, you could easily see Tierney get fit in to one of the fullback spots, and he's only 3.1. Are either of those any interest to you? Because I know Tierney's on the block to leave, but this just seems like a comfy matchup where you might give him a run out. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty worried about the sub for the Arsenal guys. I agree with you. If you got 90 minutes out of one, it would be pretty good, or even maybe 70. But with Calafiori, Tierney, and Zinchenko all vying for minutes in the same spot, it seems unlikely that that Calafiori would go 90. Even if he's just coming back, he's kind of more first choice, scored a really big goal over the weekend. Yeah, 3.2, not bad. And then Timber, Timber is a guy with his injury history too, that they sub sometimes. Party comes in and plays on right back or moves to right back if he's already in. You also have Lewis Skelly too, who he might get that suspension rescinded, I would assume, or else maybe they would play him here if he wasn't going to play the next league game. But I would assume that suspension would get lifted, so maybe he won't be a factor. But yeah, I think I prefer other guys, Mo. I think I prefer other guys. I like Connor Bradley, like you said. I like the other guys you mentioned. How much is Bradley? 42. Yeah, I think that's pretty good. Ryerson is 3,500. That seems fine, right? That seems fine for Dortmund in that spot against Shakhtar.
Bear shouted out Bensebaini in the chat, which is another really good shout and one of your favorites.
I love Bensebaini. Yeah, you can definitely play him. Guy that gets points in every possible way. Tall enough to get his head on corners, as we've seen. Also, lefty takes the odd corner. I don't think he doesn't when Gross is out there, but he has a couple times this season. And then, yeah, he gets forward as well. Yeah, I like that call from Bear. I actually don't mind Matty Cash here for 3,900. I think it's a pretty good spot for him. He's treated me surprisingly well lately. His game logs look a little better than people might think. So I think that's okay. And then Sasha Bowie is 4K if he started. Obviously, you could consider a Bayern guy, probably likely to get subbed if he starts. So consider that. And then, yeah, I don't know. After that, it's probably just center backs. I was looking through the starting lineups or the projected lineups. I didn't really see much else, but I think, I don't know, we named like a bunch. There's a bunch of fullbacks in this range. You can go for clean sheet odds too, obviously. You could play Bayern center backs. They probably go 90. Play Eric Dyer if you want to. I mean, he's 3,400. The City guys are there. Yeah, I don't know. The defenders, you would think on a 10-game slate, there'd be like some smash defenders, but there's really not, which isn't necessarily bad. You might be able to get some edge picking the best defender.
Yeah, I definitely think it'll be a big edge. I just think, we don't really see outside of Liverpool, you don't really see the old Klopp mold of, the fullback who takes sets and who attacks. I mean, it just seems to have significantly gone out of style for folks like the dreaded Mendy, who, are put in the best position to succeed, and then slate after slate just do nothing for you. He almost showed me up last slate, but alas, he ended the game, I think on 2 points, 3 points, something like that. The last shout out I'll give is the fullbacks for Shakhtar. And, it could be nothing, it could be something, but Pedrinho and Vinny Tobias are both Brazilian young attacking fullbacks priced at 2.5 and 3.2. They can get up. BVB has been struggling. The narrative is there, right? And, they don't need much to pay off. If they just even score in the 5 or 6 range, you're already doing pretty darn well. In tournaments, it's different, right? In tournaments, you probably actually are going to need your cheap defenders to hit, but that's really a bit unpredictable. But at least in cash, and even in most tournaments, they can put up a lot of points and be another piece to really unlock the more expensive guys.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I wouldn't rule out underdogs for when I'm looking for these defenders, especially fullbacks. Like, some of these underdogs are going to be in the game and putting up floor points and creating chances. You could even see that with Celtic guys, or for example. The last thing I'll say is, with some of the value and the prices, like, imagine if you just went, Coman and then Coman and Gnabry, or Coman and Nunez. So you're kind of punting 2 forwards, and you take some of the other value at mid and play Kimmich also. And my point is, there are constructions where if you get goals from everybody, maybe you can play expensive defenders that aren't going to get owned, like Digne, Tsimikas, Hakimi. It might be a spot to get some edge there in tournaments if you want to try to make a bit more balanced lineup and hit on some of the expensive defenders. I don't know if that's like the route I'll take, but there are probably enough 5 and 6 and 7K guys on this slate that can equal what some of the expensive guys do. So that is a route. That is a route to consider. Goalkeeper. Let's see. 10 games. Salary probably tough to come by. Usually on these bigger slates, we're going to want to pay down. Probably going to be ridiculous clean sheet odds for Bayern, I would assume. Got to be like 60%, right? We don't even, do we have it even on the sheet? No. I would guess like 60%. Yeah. Do you find yourself, do you see yourself getting to Neuer or one of these expensive guys? And then if not, will you take a chance on the Slovan keeper, or would you rather play one of these other 3K keepers?
Ryan, if you had to take your best guess, where would you say I'm going?
Well, I'm like 99% sure you're spending down, and I would probably doubt you play the Slovan keeper. But I've seen some people would lean into the Slovan keeper here. I don't know.
Yeah, I definitely plan on spending down. Whether I lean into the Slovan keeper does remain to be seen. I really do like, the narrative that Bayern are going to score a lot, but also just, fire a lot of shots at this guy and, probably leave him with 4 goals conceded, 8 saves total.
Yeah, I was thinking, how about 5 goals and 10 saves for 10 points,
Right,
5 goals conceded, 10 saves.
Right. So that's interesting. But also, I think Mignolet is the keeper for Bruges, and he's going to be, facing a very desperate City. So that's very tempting as well. And Bruges have a far better defense than Slovan does. So that's going to be very interesting. Dortmund are struggling terribly, and Shakhtar, we've always said, have been better than what they seem to be. They're away, but their entire season is away. So I almost feel like they are primed to, handle those types of games. I want to say any of those guys are really of interest to me. I haven't really figured out, what I'm trying to make space for here. I mean, I know the first route of what I would want to make salary available for, but I don't know if that's ultimately where I'll go. But if I decide that I don't want to take the risk of those bottom 3 teams that all look very tempting, I don't think I would pay all the way up, right? Like I think I would still wind up in a spot where, the clean sheet odds are reasonable. So, what do we have? What do we have Raya at, for example? I know it's an away game and they don't have much to play for, but what's Raya at? 5.4. You're muted, Ryan. So he's 5.4. That's getting close. Allison is 5.1, also getting close. I gotta say, I mean, I say they're getting close, but they're not either very tempting places to go. But I do think you would have the salary if you want to go there.
Yeah, and probably a little bit more upside too than a Neuer. Seems pretty tough for Neuer to score 18 points, for example, and probably Ederson as well, although you never know. Like, City have been allowing more shots and chances recently, but yeah, I agree. I'll probably be in the cheap range too. I'm not sure yet. I think you can throw other guys in. I think at least one of these cheap keepers are going to win. Like, it might sound crazy, but like Shakhtar could win, Celtic could win, Girona could definitely beat Arsenal. They don't have Saka, they don't have Odegaard, they don't have much to play for. Like, PSV could beat Liverpool. I mean, now you're getting a little bit more expensive. But I think 1 or 2 of those cheap keepers are probably going to win. Maybe not, but they at least have save upside. Yeah, I just don't see myself spending up. But you never know. Like, you might get a couple value pieces that you really like. But yeah, it's kind of tough to foresee that now.
Yep. No, I fully agree with that. I think that
little interleague update.
I haven't been checking, so I'm glad that Todd is here to give me, the play-by-play.
Yeah, the Mo train continues. We'd love to see it.
I don't really have any other thoughts on goalkeeper. I think, it's a bit of a roulette in terms of where you might want to go.
Put a bear up there. Must be nice. Bear with that big fish.
Today. It's a bit of roulette at goalkeeper, but I think if you are probably pursuing the strategy of a cheap keeper in a advantageous matchup, you're at least on the right track.
Yep, I think you're right. Anything else? I don't think so. I was just going through the comments here. I see Bear mentioned Koundé and Balde. Koundé looks a bit expensive there at 4,700. Everybody knows we love Koundé here. 47 probably too much, but I see Balde 36. It's not bad for Balde. He crosses as well. So yeah, that's in consideration. Thanks for that, Bear. Anything else here, Mo? I think it's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
there's only so much, there's so much we can talk about on a Monday with 10 games here and not really knowing who the starters are.
Right, exactly. This is very lawyerly of me, I guess, but what I would say in closing is we sit here and we think of all the scenarios where things should go, right? And I've already mentioned how Bayern should smash, but might not smash. But the opposite is true as well, right? Like Barcelona should really have very little to play for at home, and yet, they could pop up with a 3-0 win. I don't see it versus Atalanta, but it's possible, right? A couple of these other games that, we don't really think are going to have much life could easily, pop off. I think the best thing to do, or one of the best things to do anyway, is to just kind of think of what narrative you're pursuing when you're building out your lineup, and build a lineup that kind of ties itself to that. That's why Ryan always dislikes playing the opposite keeper of the attackers you're playing, because it's hard to see the narrative where that works out. It's hard to see a narrative where they score their goals and the keeper is sitting at, a good point total. And so just keep those things in mind as you're deciding whether your flag plant is Barcelona or it's Bayern or it's City. Have that reflected in your line.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a good point. Like some of the times, especially me, like, I'm dismissive of these other spots, whether it's the Barca spot, Arsenal, Liverpool, Madrid, whoever, but like you really shouldn't be. Like, even if the majority of the time that might happen, the other times, like you said, you see still great teams that can score 3 or 4 goals. They're not going to be, the players aren't going to be that owned. So yeah, I mean, it makes sense to look at all these other spots. Yeah, good advice. All right. That's going to do it. We will be back. Let me see. Yeah, Friday, or I will be back Friday at least, either for a solo show, maybe with Adam. Got a nice little Premier League slate. But yeah, 18 games on Wednesday. It'll be fun to watch. Good luck to everybody. Thanks again to Mo. Oh yeah, forgot. Hour into the pod, rotowire.com/soccer trial.
At least
Get in there.
It's not covered up today.
It's not covered up this time. We made a last-second fix, so at least everybody got to see it. But yeah, thanks again to Mo, and good luck, everybody.
Good luck, y'all.